Winning isn't about beating somebody else. In fact, it's usually about beating ourselves into the best person we know how to be. So today, we're going to go down the path of the psychology of winning. I want to talk to you about something that's been very impactful on my life and has kept me going through the hardest times. So stay with me on this episode of the Steve Beaman Show. Thanks for watching today. This is going to be a very personal podcast because what I'm talking about with you has been greatly impactful on my life. And in the tough times, and as we get to know each other more and more, and you find out more about what I've gone through in my life, I think you'll understand that I've had my share of ups and downs. So this is a hugely important one to me. We're going to talk about the 10 keys through the psychology of winning. And this was a program put out by Dr. Dennis Waitley, 40 years ago. If you've looked at Norman Vincent Peale or Joel Osteen or any of the big names, Earl Nightingale, Tony Robbins, any of the big names in positive mental attitude stuff, you'll come across Dr. Dennis Waitley. And it was my privilege to have dinner with Dr. Waitley one night, and we enjoyed a very nice conversation about the power of the psychology of winning program. By the way, I'm not paid by this. I don't get any commissions on it, but I want to share it with you because it has been so impactful on my life. Each of us goes through highs in life and we go through lows. And sometimes when it's low and you find yourself in the depths of that individual despair where you don't want to get out of bed and you can't listen to music because it's too depressing, there's times all of us go through like that. And in those really deep times, I've had to dig down into my gut to keep going. And a lot of times it's come right back to the psychology of winning. So I want to talk about these today and hopefully give you some tools that if you're going through that tough time or you're building out your dream, you have some better ideas on how to make it work for you. Again, close to my heart, and I think will be close to yours. First of all, on his program, he talks about positive self-expectancy. And that's the idea of believing good things will happen and come to you. It sounds trite and it sounds simple, but simply the act of believing good things will happen oftentimes can make them come true. It's been said, and there's some famous philosopher who said that which we fear we are most likely to become. Frankly, I might have said that. But the idea is the expectancy of ourselves is what drives us forward. So if you think good things will happen, often they do. If you expect bad things to happen, it can become a self-fulfilling prophecy. So as you're going through things, think about your expectancy in life. How do you view yourself? Are you expecting good things out of yourself? Are you expecting to become the best that you can be? Or are you in a downtime and you're looking and saying, well, I'm not capable? You are. You go to that self-expectancy and realize that what's happened to you isn't who you are. What's happened to you is just an outside event. But inside, who you believe you are, who you believe you see in the mirror, that's the expectancy you need to drive home. So that's our number one of the 10 keys to the psychology of winning. Number two is a positive self-image. By the way, you're going to notice 5 of these are driven internal. 5 of them are external. They're both dimensions hugely important. So let's look at this idea of self-motivation. It's the idea that when no one else is even watching, you do the right thing. This goes back to your self-expectancy, but it's the idea again that you drive yourself. No one else drives your bus. You're either in control of your own life or life will control you. And this idea of self-motivation is that you can take your own self, lift yourself up, and go out and accomplish that which you're capable of. So when you tie it to self-expectancy and then self-motivation, you end up going down a path that can create really good outcomes for you or really bad. It's all in your head. And that's what these two get to the core of. The third thing is a positive self-image. And that's the idea that when I look in the mirror, I see me as the person who I am. In life, you and I both go through good times and bad. And we see things that are sometimes bad that we may have done or that we've experienced. And we hold ourselves to a very high standard on that. We beat ourselves up. But let's realize that the core of who we are is just us. And when you look in the mirror at night, if you've tried to do it the right way and you've tried to look at things honestly and objectively, yes, you've made mistakes. My Lord, I've made my share. But at the end of the day, I sleep with myself. And it's that idea of positive self-image. So when I tie it to positive self-expectancy, positive and self-motivation, and positive self-image, I start to develop a core of a person who can look and say, there's a good future for me, not a bad one. The fourth idea is positive self-direction. And that's the idea that we can direct ourselves. I've been around entrepreneurship my whole life. I mean, since literally I was a teenager. And I think one of the things that's frustrated me more than anything is talking with people outside of that life. When you succeed and they say, oh, it's easy, it looked easy. Or when you fail and they say, you're just not that good. What they don't understand is those of us in the entrepreneurial space start with this. It's a blank sheet of paper. And you take that blank sheet of paper and you say, what are my strengths? What are my weaknesses? What are my capabilities? What resources do I have available? Who have I talked to recently? What ideas do I have? And on that blank sheet of paper, we begin to draw out a business model that at the end of the day may or may not work. But if it works, you're the one who directed it. Now, if it fails, you directed it too. But it's that idea of self-direction, that we control our own destiny. And we're willing to take that because we want to be responsible to ourselves. So as we look at positive self-expectancy, positive self-motivation, positive self-image, positive self-direction, and then finally in the internal capabilities, it's positive self-control. Do we have the ability to control our own emotions? Do we have the ability to control our own actions? More so than we think, we are the ones responsible. I've had my share of business success and I've had my share of failure. I can speak to both sides of that. Both of them have some of the same constraints. It is very much that this idea of self-control was involved in both. When I've succeeded, it was oftentimes the self-control to reduce and relieve the exuberance that you would feel. Keep yourself more grounded, that you don't feel arrogant, you don't feel prideful. In the downtimes when you experience failure, it's the idea of keeping your mind in a place that says, I'm okay. I can survive this and move on. I live to fight another day. This idea of positive self-control, it's my responsibility for my life, no one else's. And that's the core of these 5 early lessons from the psychology of winning when we talk about positive self-expectancy, positive self-motivation, positive self-image, positive self-direction, and positive self-control. These are critically important. And they're the ability that you have to look honestly at yourself and say, I'm okay. I can move forward. I can take my life and make of it what I want. There's a thing I keep in my bathroom, and it's a poem from years ago. And it talks about how success is all in your head. And in many ways it is. Yes, there are external things that can cause you to fail. I mean, how many of us could have predicted the COVID shutdown? None, right? That was a nightmare that none of us wanted to live through. And the government did the unprecedented thing of shutting the economy down. Well, that's an externality that you can't change. That happened to you. But as I think it was Robert Schuller said, I find in life that life is 1% what happens to me and 99% how I look at what happened to me or how I react to what happened to me. In the true psychology of a winner, you learn that, sometimes life goes against you, but that's okay. It doesn't change you as a person. It just means those events were bad. But also when it goes well, realize that, there's some humility there and some humbleness, because that was also caused by, in many cases, good times. You look at some of the extreme things like, take a Bill Gates. Bill Gates made a lot of money building software for Microsoft. He created this Microsoft thing, right? But he didn't know at the outset what the future of PCs would do. He didn't know that IBM would make the strategically wrong decision to think that hardware was the value, not software. That was random luck. Now, Bill worked hard and he's smart and he did things that were good and he had these kind of self-control attributes that it made it work. But there's these kind of stories everywhere. I mean, Milton Hershey, the founder of Hershey's Chocolates, he went bankrupt a couple of times because he wanted to keep trying, but he never gave up. He realized that it was on him and it was his self-control, his self-belief, his self-driven nature that was making him successful. So these characteristics of a positive self-image, a positive self-expectancy, positive self-control, these things help us become the best that we can be. Again, I'm paraphrasing I think it's a 2-hour audio library. I urge you to go online and buy it. So let's look at number 6. We've talked about self-control. Let's look at self-discipline. This is the idea of doing what needs to be done, even when no one else knows it. And this is perhaps the hardest one for the entrepreneur. It's the getting up in the morning to do what you have to do, not what you want to do. And it's too easy for all of us in life to get caught up in what we want to do and avoid what we have to do. It's sometimes the most difficult thing to say, that's a project that has to happen. But it's that self-discipline to say, I'm going to do what's most difficult. Look at any good athlete or any good sports team. It's that self-driven attitude and self-discipline that gets them where they want to go. So for you, as you look at your entrepreneurial journey or your family, I mean, this is true across anything, right? If you're raising children, if you're running a company, or if you're working within a company and feel like there's no tomorrow, these kind of characteristics will help generate a world in which you control your life. And when you control your life, life doesn't have to control you. And that's the magic. Self-esteem. And this gets into a funny one because in today's culture, especially, it's thought of as almost a narcissism, but it's not. Self-esteem in the truest sense is knowing you have value regardless of temporary results. You are a person. I mean, I feel like I'm Jesse Jackson, right? I am, but you are. At the core, you're the person you want to be. And if you're not, you need to work toward getting there. You can't let external events take you down. And again, in my life, I have been the recipient of very good things, and I have been the victim of very bad things. Now, that's largely a business concept, not personal. But I can't tell you how important it is in the down times to look at the mirror honestly and admit I made the mistake. But that's not about who I am at the core. And it helps you push forward because forward is all you have. Again, it's the idea of I live another day to fight. You can always get up in the morning and it's the first day of the rest of your life. And that's as true today as it was when I first heard it 30 years ago. Today is absolutely, categorically, the first day of the rest of your life. You have a chance to redefine who you are. And having that self-belief and those self-attributes is part of that. Another one, a little deeper, is you're looking at your self-dimension. And what I mean by that, and what is talked about by Dennis, is this idea of seeing your business or your activities as a calling, not as a transaction. Somebody once asked me when I made a good deal of money on Wall Street, and they said, well, how did you do that? What was your key to making money? And I said, first and foremost, because it was never about money. I did what I loved. And as a result, it just so happened that what I loved made money. That's how most people make their fortunes. They do what they love. The money is secondary. It's not a transaction. It's not, I'm going out to make money. It's passion. It's a belief that I really want to do this, and I hope there's money attached to it. I mean, I'm spending my life now supporting small business people and independent business people. Am I going to get paid for it? I don't know. I hope so. But I'm going to do it because I believe it's the right thing. And I believe at this stage of my life, it's a calling. And as a result, I believe someday I'll get paid. And when I do, it won't be because I went out to get a paycheck. It's because I went out to do what I wanted to do and believed in it deeply. If there's money attached to it, then I made a lot of money. But it's not transactional, it's relational. I want a relationship with you because I believe my experience can help you. It's not because I want you to write me a check. Now, at some point, if you do, great, everybody's win. But it's a secondary thing. And I think that's important to know. I've written several books. I didn't write those to sell them. I wrote those because they were thoughts I had that I had to put down on paper. If people buy them, wonderful. But life is like that. And that gets into, again, this idea of seeing yourself as a relationship with what you're doing, not a transaction. Too many people look at these things as transactions, and then they wonder why it didn't work. You and I don't have a transaction. We have a relationship. And if it is a transaction, it will fail. If it's a relationship, it will grow. And so this idea of self-dimension and dimensionality to ourselves is important, and it's critical. Self-awareness. And this one is sometimes the hardest of all of these things. And it's the idea that in order to become complete, you need to be self-aware. And being self-aware is painful. It just is. It's aware of our good. What are we good at? What are our strengths? What are our weaknesses? What are we not good at? And it's hard to be honest. It's hard to look in the mirror and say, I'm really good at this. I think I'm good at this. I'd like to be good at this, but I'm not really. What's our real core strength? Not what do we want to think of ourselves as, but what are we really good at? And it's hard. And this idea of self-awareness gets into you looking at yourself honestly. It's tough. And especially for those of you who are starting companies or building your company, especially as you grow through the cycles of that company, the person you were at the start may not be the person that's necessary years later. There are countless examples of people who start companies who are the wrong people to run the companies. It takes a whole different personality and mindset to do those things. But it's the wisdom to be honest with ourselves and know who we are and how we fit in the scope of things that helps us navigate through those. So to become self-aware, it's one of Maslow's things too, but it's critically important that you're honest with yourself. And believe me, I'm looking in the mirror and I got 10 fingers pointing back at me. There have been times in my life when I thought I was better than I was. There have been other times when I didn't think highly enough of myself. It's very difficult to be very self-aware and very honest. And then finally is this idea of self-projection. And that's, do you project yourself with that inner confidence of who you are? Do you believe in yourself? Again, go back to these whole things. Do you have a positive self-image? Do you have positive self-expectation? Do you believe in what you're doing as a relationship, not a transaction? Because if you do, if those things are true, then you will present with confidence. It's not arrogance, but it's confidence. It's knowing that what you know is valuable or what you're doing is valuable. And therefore you can have this idea of self-projection. You can be, positive, consistent. You can be in a confident way. And it helps provide clarity because people won't question, your decisions up or down because you're constant, you're consistent. I think one of the issues we're having right now politically is that people are looking at President Trump as an example, and he goes this way one day, this way another day. Now, you don't know, following that, is he just negotiating for a better position or is he changing his mind? It's very hard to follow that. Well, the self-projection, especially if you're running a company with your employees, the idea of being consistent with how you project and not being reactionary, but being strategic. It's a lot harder than it looks. but it's a key that's critical to you growing as a leader and as a parent, as a employee of a company wanting to grow a career. This idea that you project the confidence knowing who you really are. So these 10 things, if you look again, positive self-expectancy. Do I expect good things out of my life? Positive self-motivation. Am I getting up to move toward my goals? Am I making steps each and every day? Self-image. Do I look at myself truly and try to be the best that I can be? Self-direction. Am I going to let life control me, or am I going to control it? I believe that we want to be in control of that. Self-control. This idea of discipline is for me too. And I will be in control of my own actions and my own thoughts. And I'll do it because it leads to these other good outcomes. Self-discipline, self-esteem, self-dimension. Again, have a relationship with yourself, not a transaction. Self-awareness and self-projection. These are not soft skills. That's when I first got introduced to this. So much of what you read in the positive mental attitude movement or in the psychology of winning, all of this, that genre of materials, a lot of it's so common sense that you say, yeah, I get it. But there's really no value to it. This program by Dr. Waitley is meat. It's not soft skills. These are survival skills. I urge you to take this podcast and share it around with those you know in the business community or the entrepreneurial wannabes. And especially if you're in your 20s and you're young and you're looking at this world of entrepreneurialism, your generation, more than any of the last many years, has really bifurcated on this. Some of you really believe in this stuff. Some of you have been led away from it. You need to get back to these core beliefs, and the psychology of winning and all that's being published around those attributes are what you need to propel yourself into a space that's far above and better than where you ever thought you'd be. There is a way that you can practice these things too. And, the old thing, if I do something so many times, I become an expert and it becomes a habit and all that good stuff. You have to make this positive ideology, but this ideation of yourself, this positive self-expectancy and positive motivation, you have to make it part of your life. And I will tell you again, as you get to know me, you're going to see I've been up and I've been down. And it's in those down times I need it most, because I have to be able to look in the mirror and say, you know what? I can survive it. I can, supersede it. I can become a victor over this problem. And I'm going to do it through my own attitudes. It's my own. I own it. And as an entrepreneur or an entrepreneur wannabe or a family leader or a business leader, that responsibility requires you to have these characteristics of a winner. So each and every day, the idea is you develop a mindset of visualizing these things and of affirming their impact on your life. A lot of it comes from being gratitude, having a heart of gratitude and just being grateful for that which you have. Not looking for what you don't always, but looking for what you have and saying, I'm grateful for that. It's the old thing. Is the glass half full or half empty? Are you grateful to have half a glass of water, or are you frustrated by half of it being gone? Sometimes life is that simple. And these characteristics of a winner come down to that ability you have to look into your own heart and say, you know what? I'm okay. I can make this happen. I can go down a path one day at a time to make my objective happen. And that objective is up to you. And it doesn't mean money. Winning and money are not necessarily correlated. When I was young, I was a stockbroker, and somebody came up to me and said, Steve, why do you work so hard? And I was working from 7 a.m. till 10 o'clock at night every day. And they said, why do you work so hard? Is it for the money? And I said, no, it's for freedom. Because I realized as a young person that money and freedom were equivalences. If you had money, you had more freedom of time, freedom to do things. And I wanted that. So it wasn't the money, it was the freedom. If you go look at, a Super Bowl winning team, you'll find at the core, those players are about being the best they can be. The Super Bowl is an outcome. That's true in most successes in life. I guarantee Jeff Bezos didn't intend for Amazon to be where it is today. He set out to exploit a new technology and to be the best in that technology that he could possibly be. Well, it turns out it worked. And as a very smart entrepreneur, he built a very successful company. The same with Elon. He set out to do his passion. PayPal, his first, followed on by Tesla and by Starlink and by the rocket company. I forget its name real quick. All of that's because of passion. It wasn't done for money. So victory and winning isn't necessarily about money. It's about achieving a goal that you have. Some people can say, my winning is losing weight, or my winning is fixing my marriage, or my winning is this, that. The winning thing is subjective, but it's the ability you have to honestly look at yourself and make positive moves toward that message each and every day, one step at a time. You know, there's another dimension of this I will share with you as I've gone through my life, and this is really hard sometimes. But you want to surround yourself with a winner's circle of other people who see the same as you do. People who give you that positive, uplifting environment. I wrote an article once, and the theme of it was who brings you down. And you know people like this just as I do, but there are people that you're around who just bring you down. They just beat you up, even if they're not trying to. It's just their very presence just brings you down. Well, you don't want to be around those people. You want to surround your people with people who give you a positive message and look to help you down that path to your own success. Surround yourself with a board of winners as much as a board of directors or advisors. Make it a board of winners. And again, winning is only defined by you. If you want to be a poet, surround yourself with those people who are the best poets ever. If you want to be a musician, surround yourself with musicians who are passionate about that. Be the best you can be. I mean, I could talk about this one all day. And as I said, it's very close to me. When I first heard these tapes, and this goes back into the 70s, it really affected my life because I started to realize that life's in my control. That doesn't mean I'm in control of all of it. I'm not. There's, the old, what is wisdom? It's knowing what you can control and what you cannot control type thing. But sometimes I've given up control, especially in business, when I shouldn't have. And it's burned me bad. What can I say? Sometimes you have to take what you take, but you always look forward with that attitude of, I can win. And I can win because of who I am. And I can win because I expect myself to win. I don't expect to lose. I expect to win. Look at the greats who've come out of whatever problem they had. Ray Kroc. He certainly wasn't a big success before he found McDonald's. Again, Milton Hershey as an example. What was it? Thomas Edison, who one time, somebody said, how was your day? And he said, well, I failed 98 times to build a light bulb. And they said, well, that's got to be frustrating. He said, not at all. I found 98 ways not to build a light bulb. It's how we look at it, how we experience it. Those are the things that separate you from the non-winners in life. I know the fact that you've taken a moment to listen to this and all of its, self-aggrandizing, whatever you call this, you've taken the time to say, I want to learn what that is. And I'm telling you, you will be better for it. You will be more able to face the challenges of tomorrow if you can learn these attributes of winning and incorporate them into who you are. Do you expect good things to happen? Are you motivated toward that end objective? Do you have the positive self-esteem to say, you know what, as an individual, I'm okay? Do you have the notion of a relationship instead of a transaction? All of these things blend together to create the human. I mean, it ties to Maslow's hierarchy of needs, of which I'm a big fan of that stuff. But when you look at just the idea of a winning attitude, Dennis Waitley in The Psychology of Winning nailed it. He nailed it directly. And it is the best audio program I've ever heard. So these 10 keys, and I'll do more on this. I'll write articles about this, and I've got more deeper podcasts coming out about each of these individual characteristics. But I got an offer for you, by the way. If you want Give me an email, respond in this, send me an email to steve@stevebeaman.com. steve@stevebeaman.com. Send me an email, refer back to this podcast, and I'll send you a little ebook on 10 truths every business owner should know. It's based on my decades of experience, again, in the trenches, doing what we do. I've lived it, good, bad, and ugly. And I can share those experiences. So I wrote this little paper on 10 truths every independent business should know. I think you should know it. So if you write me at steve@stevebeaman.com, I'll be happy to send you a copy of that. Absolutely no charge. But remember, winning starts inside. And whether you think you win or not is up to you. And whether you do win or not is up to you. It's, again, that little thing I keep in my bathroom. If I'd like to win but think I won't, it's almost a cinch. I can't, it's all about how you think. So think well, think positive, think success, incorporate it into your life. And as always, stay strong, stay free, and stay sovereign. I'm Steve Beaman, and thanks for listening.